The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone courtyard of Buckingham Palace as Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez adjusted his dress blue uniform one final time. The United States Marine had been selected for this special ceremonial exchange program, a diplomatic gesture between allies that would see him spend 2 weeks observing and participating in various British military traditions. At 32 years old, Rodriguez had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and earned numerous commendations, but nothing in his military career had prepared him for what was about to unfold. Standing at attention near the palace gates was Lance Corporal James Winchester of the Queen's Guard, resplendent in his scarlet tunic and bearskin hat. Winchester, 28, came from a long line of military service members. His grandfather had served in World War II, his father in the Falklands, and now James carried on the family tradition with the same quiet pride that had defined the Winchester men for generations. What made James particularly notable wasn't just his impeccable military bearing, but his reputation as one of the most disciplined guardsmen in recent memory. The two men had been introduced the previous evening during a formal dinner at the officers' mess. Neither spoke much during the meal, both preferring to observe rather than engage in small talk. Rodriguez noted Winchester's precise movements, the way he held his cutlery with military precision, and how his eyes constantly scanned the room with the alertness of a seasoned soldier. Winchester, meanwhile, observed the American's confident posture and the respectful way he interacted with the British officers, despite the obvious cultural differences. Colonel Patricia Hartwell, the British liaison officer overseeing the exchange program, had briefed both men separately about the week's activities. The schedule included various ceremonial duties, training exercises, and cultural events designed to strengthen the bond between the two militaries. What she hadn't anticipated was the natural rivalry that would develop between these two exceptional soldiers. The courtyard began to fill with tourists and dignitaries as the morning progressed. Today marked the beginning of a special week-long celebration of military cooperation between the United States and United Kingdom. Various demonstrations and ceremonies had been planned, with media coverage expected throughout. The presence of cameras and reporters added an extra layer of formality to what was already a highly structured environment. Rodriguez had arrived in London 5 days earlier and spent his time studying British military customs and protocol. He understood the importance of representing his country well and had prepared meticulously for every aspect of the exchange. His dress uniform was immaculate, every ribbon and insignia perfectly positioned. The Marine Corps had drilled into him the importance of attention to detail, and he wasn't about to disappoint now. Winchester had been performing ceremonial duties for 3 years and knew every aspect of palace protocol by heart. His movements were fluid and automatic, refined through countless hours of practice and performance. The weight of his rifle felt natural in his hands, and the heavy bearskin hat no longer caused the neck strain it had during his early days of service. He took pride in maintaining the centuries-old traditions of the Queen's Guard. As the morning ceremony began, both men took their positions according to the day's schedule. Rodriguez would observe various guard duties while Winchester performed his regular ceremonial functions. The crowd of onlookers grew larger, with tourists pointing cameras and military officials taking notes. The atmosphere was formal but friendly, with both British and American flags displayed prominently throughout the courtyard. During the first drill demonstration, something unexpected happened. The commanding officer announced that both the Marine and the Guard would participate in a series of traditional military exercises, allowing spectators to observe different styles of military bearing and precision. This wasn't part of the original schedule, but the presence of so many dignitaries and media representatives made it an attractive addition to the day's events. Rodriguez felt a familiar surge of competitive energy. Throughout his career, he had always risen to challenges, whether in training, combat, or ceremonial situations. The opportunity to demonstrate Marine Corps precision in front of an international audience appealed to his professional pride. He checked his uniform once more and prepared to give his best performance. Winchester received the news with his characteristic calm composure. He had performed countless ceremonial duties in front of crowds, but this situation felt different. The presence of the American Marine added an element of comparison that hadn't existed before. While he felt no personal animosity toward Rodriguez, his professional pride as a guardsman meant he would execute every movement with absolute perfection. The crowd sensed the subtle shift in atmosphere. What had begun as a routine ceremonial observation was evolving into something more interesting. Spectators began positioning themselves for better views, and the photographers readied their cameras. Even the British officers seemed more alert, recognizing that they were about to witness something special. Colonel Hartwell observed the developing situation with mixed feelings. While she appreciated the enthusiasm both men were showing, she also recognized the potential for this friendly competition to escalate beyond the bounds of diplomatic protocol. She made a mental note to monitor the situation carefully while allowing the natural military pride of both soldiers to shine through. The first exercise involved basic drill movements performed individually. Rodriguez stepped forward first, his movements crisp and powerful in the distinctive Marine Corps style. Every turn was executed with mathematical precision, his rifle handled with the confidence that came from years of intensive training. The crowd watched in appreciative silence as he completed the sequence flawlessly. Winchester followed with the traditional British ceremonial drill. His movements were more formal and stylized, reflecting centuries of military tradition. The slow, deliberate pace of his execution created a hypnotic effect on the observers. His rifle work was equally precise but performed with the theatrical flair that characterized the Queen's Guard ceremonies. Neither man looked at the other during their performances, but both were acutely aware of the comparison being made. The crowd's reaction to each demonstration provided subtle feedback about their relative success. Whispered conversations and pointing gestures indicated that the spectators were indeed making mental comparisons between the two military styles. As the morning progressed, additional exercises were added to the program. The commanding officer, recognizing the entertainment value of the competition, began incorporating more challenging elements. Each new task seemed designed to test different aspects of military bearing, precision, and endurance. Both Rodriguez and Winchester rose to meet each challenge with increasing intensity. The media representatives present began to recognize the story developing before them. What had started as routine coverage of a diplomatic exchange was becoming something much more compelling. Cameras focused on both men as they prepared for each new challenge, capturing the subtle expressions of concentration and determination on their faces. Rodriguez found himself drawing on every aspect of his military training. The precision demanded by these ceremonial exercises was different from combat readiness, but equally challenging in its own way. He thought of his fellow Marines watching from home and felt the weight of representing not just himself but his entire branch of service. Winchester felt the eyes of generations of guardsmen upon him. The traditions he was upholding stretched back centuries, and he understood that his performance reflected not just his own abilities but the entire legacy of the Queen's Guard. Every movement carried the weight of history and expectation. The crowd had grown substantially as word of the unusual competition spread throughout the palace area. Tourism guides began directing their groups toward the courtyard, and palace staff found themselves answering increasing numbers of questions about the two soldiers and their respective backgrounds. By midday, the informal competition had taken on a life of its own. Neither Rodriguez nor Winchester had spoken directly to each other, but their mutual respect was evident in the careful attention each paid to the other's performance. This wasn't about personal rivalry but about professional excellence and national pride. Colonel Hartwell realized that what was happening exceeded anything she had planned for the exchange program. The genuine display of military precision and friendly competition was creating exactly the kind of positive international relations the program was designed to foster. She decided to let events continue developing naturally, while ensuring everything remained within appropriate bounds. As the afternoon approached, both men prepared for what everyone sensed would be the most challenging exercises yet. The crowd had settled into an expectant silence, understanding that they were witnessing something special unfold between these two exceptional soldiers. The wordless nature of their competition made it even more compelling. Communication happened entirely through demonstration of skill and military bearing. Each man's response to the other's performance spoke volumes about their respective training, dedication, and professional pride. Rodriguez cleaned his rifle with methodical precision during a brief break, his movements watched carefully by British soldiers who were curious about American military techniques. He answered their questions politely but remained focused on the challenges ahead. Winchester used the same break to inspect every aspect of his uniform and equipment. The weight of representing his country and his regiment in front of such an audience was something he took seriously, but it also energized him to perform at his absolute best. The stage was set for an afternoon that would push both men to demonstrate everything their respective military training had given them. Neither could have anticipated how this routine diplomatic exchange would evolve into a display of military excellence that would captivate everyone present and create a story that would be remembered long after the formal ceremonies concluded. The crowd waited in anticipation as both soldiers prepared for what promised to be an extraordinary demonstration of military precision, national pride, and mutual respect between allies. The afternoon sun reached its peak as Colonel Hartwell approached the two soldiers with a new challenge that would test their abilities in ways neither had anticipated. She had been observing their morning performances and recognized that both men possessed exceptional skills that deserved a more demanding showcase. The growing crowd and media attention had convinced her that this spontaneous competition could serve as a powerful demonstration of Allied military excellence. Rodriguez wiped perspiration from his brow while maintaining his rigid posture. The morning exercises had been more demanding than typical ceremonial duties, requiring sustained concentration and physical precision. His Marine training had prepared him for extended periods of intense focus. But the added pressure of representing his country in such a public forum brought an extra dimension to the challenge. Winchester remained motionless in his position, the heavy bearskin hat showing no effect on his unwavering stance. Years of ceremonial duty had built his endurance for extended periods of absolute stillness. But today felt different. The presence of his American counterpart had elevated every aspect of his performance, pushing him to demonstrate the highest standards of British military tradition. The crowd had organized itself into informal viewing areas, with tourists, military officials, and media representatives creating distinct groups throughout the courtyard. Palace guards not directly involved in the demonstration had taken positions where they could observe while maintaining their own duties. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as everyone sensed that the afternoon would bring even more impressive displays of military skill. Colonel Hartwell announced the next phase of exercises would involve weapons handling demonstrations. Both soldiers would perform intricate drill sequences with their respective service rifles, showcasing the different techniques and traditions of their military branches. The challenge would test not only their individual skills, but also their ability to maintain composure under intense scrutiny. Rodriguez felt the familiar weight of his M16A4 service rifle as he prepared for the weapons demonstration. Every Marine learned weapons handling as a fundamental skill, but ceremonial applications required a different kind of precision. The movements needed to be not only technically correct but visually impressive for the watching crowd. He ran through the sequence mentally, visualizing each step with the clarity that had served him well in combat situations. Winchester adjusted his grip on the traditional ceremonial rifle carried by the Queen's Guard. The weapon was heavier than modern service rifles but perfectly balanced for the formal movements required by centuries of tradition. His muscle memory contained hundreds of hours of practice with this exact rifle, and he could perform the ceremonial sequences with his eyes closed if necessary. The weapons demonstration began with Rodriguez performing a series of rifle movements that showcased Marine Corps precision and power. His transitions between positions were sharp and decisive, each movement executed with the controlled aggression that characterized American military style. The rifle moved through complex patterns with mechanical precision, never wavering from its intended path. Spectators watched in fascination as the Marine's performance combined technical excellence with an unmistakable display of military confidence. His movements were economical and purposeful, wasting no motion while achieving maximum visual impact. The sound of his boots on the cobblestones provided a rhythmic accompaniment to the precise manipulation of his weapon. Winchester began his demonstration with the slow, ceremonial pace traditional to the Queen's Guard. His movements were more theatrical than Rodriguez's, designed to create a sense of pageantry and historical continuity. Every gesture carried the weight of tradition, performed exactly as generations of guardsmen had done before him. The rifle became an extension of his body, moving through ancient patterns with fluid grace. The contrast between the two styles was immediately apparent to everyone watching. Rodriguez's performance emphasized efficiency and combat readiness, while Winchester's demonstration showcased ceremony and tradition. Both approaches were technically flawless, but they represented fundamentally different philosophies of military presentation. As the weapons demonstrations continued, the complexity of the exercises increased. Colonel Hartwell introduced elements that required improvisation and adaptation, testing each man's ability to maintain excellence while adjusting to unexpected challenges. Neither soldier showed any sign of difficulty, rising to meet each new requirement with professional competence. The crowd began to develop favorites, though the appreciation for both performances was universal. American tourists found themselves drawn to Rodriguez's dynamic style, while British observers took particular pride in Winchester's traditional approach. Military personnel from both countries recognized the exceptional skill level both men were displaying. Rodriguez executed a particularly challenging sequence that required him to transition rapidly between different rifle positions while maintaining perfect alignment and timing. His training in combat situations served him well, allowing him to adapt quickly to the ceremonial requirements while maintaining the intensity that marked all his performances. Winchester responded with a demonstration of the most complex ceremonial drill in the Queen's Guard repertoire. The sequence required absolute precision in timing and movement, with no room for error or hesitation. His execution was flawless, each element performed with the confidence that came from years of dedicated practice. The afternoon progressed with increasingly difficult challenges being introduced. Colonel Hartwell found herself constantly raising the bar, as both men continued to exceed expectations. What had begun as a simple demonstration was evolving into a masterclass in military excellence from two different traditions. Media representatives began interviewing spectators, capturing reactions to the unusual competition. The consensus was universal amazement at the skill level being displayed and appreciation for the respectful nature of the rivalry. Both soldiers were clearly pushing themselves to their limits while maintaining absolute professionalism. During a brief rest period, Rodriguez and Winchester found themselves standing near each other for the first time since the competition began. Neither spoke, but they exchanged a slight nod of mutual acknowledgement. The respect between them was evident despite their wordless rivalry. Colonel Hartwell observed this interaction and realized she was witnessing something special. The competition had brought out the best in both men, while fostering the kind of international military cooperation the exchange program was designed to promote. She decided to introduce one final challenge that would push both soldiers to demonstrate their absolute best. The announcement came that the final afternoon exercise would be a synchronized demonstration, requiring both men to perform complementary routines simultaneously. This would test not only their individual skills but also their ability to coordinate with each other, despite their different training and traditions. Rodriguez felt a surge of nervous energy at this unexpected development. Synchronizing with another soldier required a different kind of precision than individual performance. He would need to read Winchester's movements and timing while maintaining his own high standards. The challenge appealed to his competitive nature while respecting the collaborative spirit of the exchange program. Winchester accepted the challenge with characteristic calm, though internally he recognized the difficulty of what was being asked. Ceremonial drill had trained him to work in coordination with other guardsmen, but adapting to the American Marines' different style and timing would require all his professional skill and adaptability. The crowd sensed that something special was about to happen. The afternoon had already exceeded everyone's expectations, but this final challenge promised to be the most impressive display yet. Cameras were repositioned, and spectators found the best possible viewing angles for what was clearly going to be the climactic moment of the day. Both soldiers began their preparation for the synchronized demonstration, each studying the other's style and trying to anticipate how their different approaches could complement each other. The challenge would require them to maintain their individual excellence while creating something new through collaboration. Rodriguez focused on adapting his sharp, decisive movements to coordinate with Winchester's more formal style. He would need to modify his timing without sacrificing the precision that defined Marine Corps drill. The mental challenge was as significant as the physical demands of the performance. Winchester worked to understand the rhythm and intensity of American military drill while maintaining the traditional elements that defined his own performance. The task required him to expand beyond his comfort zone while preserving the ceremonial dignity that was central to his military identity. As they prepared for what everyone understood would be the defining moment of their competition, both men showed signs of the intense concentration required for this unprecedented challenge. The wordless communication between them became even more crucial as they worked to coordinate their very different military traditions into a unified demonstration. The crowd fell silent as both soldiers moved into position for the synchronized demonstration. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the courtyard, creating a dramatic backdrop for what promised to be an extraordinary conclusion to a day that had already exceeded all expectations. Colonel Hartwell watched with a mixture of professional interest and personal pride as the two soldiers she had brought together prepared to demonstrate the highest levels of military excellence, while representing the best traditions of their respective countries. The courtyard fell into complete silence as Rodriguez and Winchester positioned themselves for the synchronized demonstration. Even the usual sounds of London traffic seemed muted, as if the entire city was holding its breath for what was about to unfold. The two soldiers stood 10 feet apart, their eyes meeting for the first time all day, in a moment of wordless communication that would determine the success of their unprecedented collaboration. Colonel Hartwell raised her hand to signal the beginning of the demonstration, then paused as she realized something extraordinary was happening. Both men had somehow entered a state of perfect focus that transcended their individual training. The competitive energy that had driven their morning performances had evolved into something deeper, a mutual recognition of excellence that promised to produce something neither could achieve alone. Rodriguez felt time slow down as he prepared to execute the most challenging performance of his military career. Every fiber of his being was tuned to Winchester's presence, reading the subtle signs that would allow them to move as one despite their vastly different backgrounds. His breathing synchronized with the British soldiers, and he found himself accessing a level of concentration he had never experienced before. Winchester experienced a similar transformation as he prepared to blend his ceremonial precision with the American's dynamic energy. The weight of tradition that always accompanied his performances felt different now, enhanced rather than constrained by the presence of his counterpart. His awareness expanded to encompass both their individual strengths and their collective potential. The signal came, and both men began to move with a synchronization that stunned everyone watching. Rodriguez's sharp, decisive movements flowed seamlessly into Winchester's formal ceremonial style, creating a visual dialogue that spoke of military excellence across cultural boundaries. Their rifles moved in complementary arcs, never interfering but always enhancing each other's performance. The crowd watched in amazement as the two soldiers created something entirely new while honoring their respective traditions. Rodriguez's Marine Corps intensity provided a dynamic counterpoint to Winchester's ceremonial grace, neither overwhelming the other but instead creating a perfect balance that elevated both performances to unprecedented heights. As the demonstration continued, something remarkable began to happen. The wordless communication between the two men deepened beyond mere coordination into genuine collaboration. They began anticipating each other's movements with uncanny accuracy, adjusting their own performances in real time to create moments of stunning visual harmony. Rodriguez found himself incorporating elements of Winchester's formal style without abandoning his own identity as a Marine. The British soldier's ceremonial precision influenced his timing and positioning in subtle ways that enhanced rather than compromised his performance. He was learning and adapting in real time, while maintaining absolute professionalism. Winchester discovered that Rodriguez's dynamic energy could complement his traditional approach in unexpected ways. The American's intensity added a new dimension to movements that Winchester had performed thousands of times before. He felt his own performance expanding beyond its usual boundaries, while remaining true to its ceremonial roots. The audience began to realize they were witnessing something unprecedented. Military observers from both countries recognized that the two soldiers were creating new possibilities for international military cooperation through their wordless dialogue of movement and precision. The demonstration had transcended mere competition to become a genuine artistic collaboration. Media representatives struggled to capture the full impact of what they were seeing. Cameras could record the movements, but the subtle communication and mutual adaptation happening between Rodriguez and Winchester required personal observation to fully appreciate. Many found themselves lowering their cameras to simply watch this extraordinary display unfold. Colonel Hartwell felt a surge of professional pride, mixed with amazement at what her simple exchange program had produced. The synchronized demonstration was exceeding every possible expectation, showcasing military excellence in a way that would be remembered long after the formal ceremonies concluded. She realized she was witnessing a defining moment in international military relations. The complexity of the synchronized movements continued to increase as both soldiers pushed themselves toward absolute perfection. Their rifles traced intricate patterns through the air, creating geometric shapes that seemed to hang in space before dissolving into new configurations. Every movement was precisely timed and perfectly executed, yet maintained an organic flow that made the performance feel effortless. Rodriguez felt his awareness expand to encompass not just his own movements but the entire courtyard and everyone watching. The pressure of the audience became a source of energy rather than stress, fueling his performance to heights he had never reached before. His marine training had prepared him for many challenges, but nothing like this combination of technical demands and international diplomacy. Winchester experienced a similar expansion of consciousness as he performed movements that honored centuries of tradition while adapting to the unprecedented requirements of this collaboration. The bearskin hat that had once felt heavy now seemed weightless, and his rifle moved as if it were an extension of his thoughts, rather than a separate object requiring conscious control. The demonstration reached a crescendo as both men executed the most challenging sequence yet attempted. Their movements accelerated while maintaining perfect precision, creating a blur of synchronized motion that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The crowd gasped audibly as they witnessed rifle work that pushed the boundaries of what seemed humanly possible. At that moment, something happened that no one had anticipated. Rodriguez and Winchester, moving in perfect synchronization, began to incorporate elements that neither had planned but both understood intuitively. Their wordless communication had evolved to the point where they were creating new movements spontaneously. Each man's innovation immediately understood and complemented by his partner. The spontaneous creativity within the rigid framework of military precision created a paradox that fascinated everyone watching. Here were two soldiers trained in the most disciplined military traditions, yet finding ways to express individual creativity while maintaining absolute adherence to their professional standards. Rodriguez felt himself entering a flow state where conscious thought gave way to pure instinct and training. His movements became automatic yet inspired, drawing on every aspect of his military experience while reaching toward possibilities he had never imagined. The presence of Winchester beside him seemed to unlock potential he didn't know he possessed. Winchester experienced a similar transcendence of his normal performance parameters. The ceremonial movements that defined his military identity expanded to accommodate new possibilities without losing their essential character. He felt connected not just to Rodriguez but to every guardsman who had ever performed these duties, as if channeling the collective excellence of his entire tradition. The crowd realized they were witnessing something that would never be repeated. This exact combination of circumstances, these two particular soldiers, this perfect synchronization of different military traditions, could never occur again. The uniqueness of the moment added to its impact, making every observer feel privileged to witness this display of military artistry. As the demonstration moved toward its conclusion, both men seemed to gain energy rather than tire from their exertions. The synchronized movements had created a momentum that carried them beyond normal human limitations, accessing reserves of strength and precision they didn't know they possessed. Their final sequences were performed with an intensity that left the entire audience breathless. The concluding movements brought Rodriguez and Winchester back to their starting positions. But both men had been transformed by the experience. They stood at attention, breathing heavily but maintaining perfect military posture, as the crowd erupted in spontaneous applause that echoed off the palace walls and seemed to shake the very foundations of the ancient building. Colonel Hartwell stepped forward to formally conclude the demonstration, but found herself momentarily speechless at what she had witnessed. The synchronized performance had exceeded every possible expectation and created new possibilities for military cooperation that she was still trying to fully comprehend. The media representatives began to understand that they had documented something historically significant. This wasn't just an impressive military demonstration, but a genuine breakthrough in international cooperation, achieved through the universal language of professional excellence and mutual respect. Rodriguez and Winchester remained at attention, their eyes meeting once more in a moment of shared acknowledgement of what they had accomplished together. Neither needed words to communicate their mutual respect and the satisfaction of having achieved something extraordinary through their wordless collaboration. The crowd began to disperse slowly, many spectators clearly reluctant to leave the scene of such an remarkable display. Conversations buzzed with excitement as people tried to process what they had witnessed and share their amazement with others who had been equally stunned by the performance. As the afternoon shadows lengthened across the courtyard, both soldiers began the process of returning to normal military protocol. But everyone present understood that something fundamental had changed in how they would think about international military cooperation and the possibilities that existed when excellence met excellence in an atmosphere of mutual respect. The aftermath of the synchronized demonstration created a buzz of excitement that continued long after Rodriguez and Winchester had been dismissed from their positions. Palace officials found themselves dealing with an unprecedented level of media attention as news of the extraordinary performance spread beyond the immediate audience to capture international interest. What had begun as a routine diplomatic exchange was becoming a story that would be told in military academies and international relations courses for years to come. Rodriguez sat in the officers' quarters that evening, still processing what had occurred during the demonstration. The adrenaline had finally subsided, leaving him with a profound sense of accomplishment, mixed with amazement at what he and Winchester had achieved together. His Marine training had prepared him for many challenges, but nothing had prepared him for the unique experience of that perfect synchronization with a soldier from another nation and military tradition. Winchester found himself in his own quarters, methodically cleaning his ceremonial rifle while reflecting on the day's events. The familiar routine of equipment maintenance provided a calming counterpoint to the extraordinary nature of what had transpired. He had performed countless ceremonial duties throughout his career, but today's demonstration had transcended ceremony to become something approaching art. Colonel Hartwell spent her evening fielding phone calls from superior officers, media representatives, and military officials from multiple countries who had heard about the demonstration. The positive reception was unanimous, with everyone recognizing that the spontaneous competition and collaboration had achieved more for international military relations than months of formal diplomatic meetings could have accomplished. The video footage of the synchronized demonstration began circulating on social media platforms within hours, garnering millions of views as people around the world marveled at the display of military precision and international cooperation. Comments flooded in from military personnel, civilians, and government officials, all expressing amazement at what they had witnessed. American military officials were quick to praise Rodriguez's performance, recognizing that his representation of Marine Corps values had been flawless, while also demonstrating the adaptability and professionalism that defined the American military. His ability to collaborate effectively with his British counterpart, while maintaining his own military identity, was seen as a perfect example of diplomatic excellence. British military leadership was equally impressed with Winchester's performance, noting that he had upheld the highest traditions of the Queen's Guard, while also showing the flexibility to adapt to an unprecedented situation. His ability to incorporate new elements into traditional ceremonial drill, without compromising its essential character, was recognized as exceptional professional skill. The tourists who had witnessed the demonstration found themselves with stories they would tell for the rest of their lives. Many had visited London expecting to see routine ceremonial duties but instead witnessed a display of military excellence that exceeded anything they could have imagined. Their accounts of the event, shared with friends and family around the world, helped spread awareness of what had occurred. Professional military observers from various countries began analyzing the demonstration, studying the footage to understand how two soldiers from different traditions had achieved such perfect synchronization. The implications for international military cooperation and cross-training programs were immediately apparent to everyone involved in military education and planning. The success of the demonstration led to immediate requests for Rodriguez and Winchester to perform together at other venues. Military officials from multiple countries expressed interest in hosting similar events, recognizing the diplomatic and educational value of what had been achieved. Both soldiers found themselves at the center of attention they had never sought, but had earned through their exceptional performance. Rodriguez received communication from Marine Corps headquarters congratulating him on his outstanding representation of American military values. The positive international response to his performance was seen as a significant diplomatic achievement that enhanced the reputation of the United States military worldwide. His superiors recognized that his individual excellence had contributed to broader strategic objectives. Winchester was commended by his commanding officers for his exceptional performance and his role in strengthening Anglo-American military relations. The Queen's Guard took particular pride in how he had maintained traditional standards while adapting to unprecedented circumstances. His performance was cited as an example of how military tradition could evolve while preserving its essential character. The media coverage of the event continued to expand as more outlets picked up the story. Military analysts provided commentary on the technical aspects of the performance, while diplomatic experts discussed its implications for international relations. The consensus was that the demonstration had achieved something remarkable through the simple application of professional excellence and mutual respect. Colonel Hartwell found herself appointed to lead a new initiative, developing similar exchange programs based on the success of what had occurred. Her experience overseeing the Rodriguez-Winchester interaction was recognized as invaluable in creating future opportunities for international military cooperation. The program she would develop would become a model for military diplomacy worldwide. Educational institutions began incorporating analysis of the demonstration into their curricula, using it as a case study in international cooperation, military excellence, and the power of professional respect to transcend cultural boundaries. Military academies from multiple countries requested copies of the video footage for use in training programs. The impact on Rodriguez and Winchester personally was profound. Both men had experienced something that changed their understanding of their own capabilities and the possibilities that existed when excellence met excellence. Their wordless collaboration had created a bond of professional respect that would influence their entire careers. Rodriguez found that the experience had expanded his understanding of military service beyond national boundaries. While his loyalty to the Marine Corps and the United States remained absolute, he now had a deeper appreciation for the universal values that connected professional soldiers, regardless of their nationality. The demonstration had reinforced his belief in the power of military excellence to build bridges between nations. Winchester discovered that his dedication to British military tradition was enhanced rather than diminished by his collaboration with the American Marine. The experience had shown him that tradition could be honored while remaining open to new possibilities. His performance with Rodriguez had demonstrated that the Queen's Guard could maintain its essential character while adapting to unprecedented circumstances. The two soldiers met briefly before Rodriguez's departure from London, their first real conversation since the demonstration had begun. The mutual respect that had developed through their wordless collaboration translated easily into spoken communication, and both men expressed appreciation for what they had learned from each other. Their final handshake was witnessed by Colonel Hartwell, who recognized that she was observing the conclusion of something historically significant. The exchange program that had brought these two exceptional soldiers together had achieved more than anyone could have anticipated, creating new possibilities for international military cooperation. As Rodriguez boarded his flight back to the United States, he carried with him not only the satisfaction of having represented his country exceptionally well, but also a new understanding of the possibilities that existed when professional excellence transcended national boundaries. The demonstration at Buckingham Palace would influence his approach to military service for the rest of his career. Winchester returned to his regular ceremonial duties with a renewed appreciation for the traditions he upheld daily. The experience with Rodriguez had shown him that these traditions were not static monuments to the past but living practices that could grow and adapt while maintaining their essential meaning. His performance of routine duties was enhanced by this broader perspective. The story of their wordless duel became legend within military circles, told and retold as an example of how professional excellence and mutual respect could achieve extraordinary results. Military personnel from around the world studied their performance, trying to understand the elements that had made their collaboration so successful. Years later, both Rodriguez and Winchester would continue to receive recognition for their roles in what many considered a defining moment in modern military diplomacy. Their demonstration had proven that the highest levels of military excellence could serve not just national interests, but broader human values of cooperation and mutual respect. The legacy of their performance extended far beyond the immediate participants, inspiring new approaches to international military cooperation and demonstrating the power of professional excellence to create understanding across cultural and national boundaries. Their wordless duel had stunned everyone watching and created ripple effects that would be felt for generations to come. The Buckingham Palace courtyard returned to its normal routine, but those who had witnessed the extraordinary demonstration would never forget the afternoon when two soldiers from different nations had created something beautiful and unprecedented through nothing more than dedication to excellence and respect for each other's abilities.